Let the record show that the regular Riverview City Council meeting was called to order at 7 p.m. on April 3rd, 2023. Will the clerk please take roll?
Councilmember Blanchette. Councilmember Ganaga.
Here.
Councilmember Norton.
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Robbins. Mayor Swift.
Here.
Councilmember Workman.
Here.
Let the record show that Councilman Robbins and Councilwoman Blanchette are excused. Tonight we have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilwoman O'Neill and invocation by Councilman Norton. Will you please rise?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we ask you to bless this city, this state, and this country. We ask you to please put on our hearts and our minds to do what is right. And we give you the praise and glory. Amen.
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 Thank you for that. Jeff, do we have any announcements?
Yes, Your Honor, we do. Todd Dickman, Recreation Department.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to remind anyone or let people know that our Easter stroll is going to be this Saturday, and people can bring their children out and take a stroll around the pond from 11 to 12 noon. And we will have approximately 15 departments or businesses from Riverview that will be passing things out to the children, and they will be out there, at least as long as supplies last, or till noon this Saturday.
Thank you, Todd.
Your Honor, Mike Kettler in the Golf Department. It's that time of year. We're going to have our junior golf sign-up. Our very popular program is going to be Saturday, April 22nd at 8 a.m. As always, residents will be able to sign up on Friday, April 21st at 8 a.m. Please bring a proof of residency with you. That program starts in June.
Thank you, Mike. Anything else, Jeff?
No, Your Honor.
I do have one quick one. I missed it last time. Our long-serving zoning board member, Fred Stahl's father, passed away, so we'd like to wish the best to his family and our condolences. We have no awards and presentations tonight. I would look for the approval of the minutes of the 3/20/23 regular Riverview City Council meeting and the condensed version for publication. What's council's pleasure?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Councilman O'Neill, supported by Councilman Norton. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Ganaga.
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga. I'm sorry. I have the
Yes.
speaker on. Councilmember Norton.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Swift.
Yes.
Councilmember Workman.
Yes.
Tonight, we have no public hearings, and now is the time for public comment. Before we get started, we do have a special guest here tonight. I invite Cal Kirchen up to the microphone on behalf of Congresswoman Debbie Dingell.
Hardly special, but I appreciate it.
You're special to us.
Oh, I thank you. No, I just wanted to come and introduce myself and make sure that my contact information is readily accessible. We are in that time of year where we're asking for money from our state and federal governments, so we want to make sure that we are supporting you all in any grant support letters that we can provide. I did run out of cards, but please utilize my email and send those over to me as soon as possible so that we can start drafting those up. Other than that, I have to say I go to a lot of city council meetings here in the Downriver community. This is the best attended one. Part of me is wondering what I just walked into, but the other part of me is proud that we have constituents who are here. It's often overlooked, so do appreciate everybody's public service here, and please utilize my cell phone.
Thank you, Cal. All right, now is the time for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the mayor and council, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Try to keep your comments to 5 minutes. There is no sharing of time and no rebuttals, and please be respectful. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Julie Lepart. I live at 13031 Orange Street in Southgate, Michigan. I'm sorry. I am the wife of Tim Lepart. Tim is a long, hard-working employee.
Julie,
I'm sorry.
I hate to interrupt, but I just want to make it clear that we cannot participate or discuss any employee matters, you're free to go on, but there won't be any dialogue from our end.
I do understand that. Thank you. He's a long, hard-working employee of the Riverview DPW since November of 2001, which is more than 21 years of service. In August of 2022, Tim suffered a massive brain bleed and blood clot, which was discovered by bleeding from his ear. He underwent emergency brain surgery where his skull cap was partially removed so that the surgeon could manipulate the brain and remove as much of the blood clot as possible without damaging the rest of his brain. The surgeon also inserted 2 drain tubes in Tim's brain to remove as much of the blood from the area as possible. Prior to the surgery, the surgeon had warned me that a section of Tim's skull cap may be removed and not put back on for up to 4 months. Fortunately, the surgeon discovered that Tim's brain was in great shape considering his circumstances and decided to reattach the skull cap during the surgery. Hours after the surgery, Tim began to talk again and was able to answer a few brief questions. Some correct answers and some incorrect were given. They said that this could be expected and was normal, and since the blood was still being drained, that the brain would shift and need to settle and many changes would come and go. Unfortunately, the loss of speech was the first to go. Tim didn't talk for 8 days. In a relationship, you may not want your spouse to talk, but after almost 35 years together, not hearing his voice was overwhelming to me. I literally listened to prior voicemail messages that he left me just so that I could hear his voice again. After a few days, I had wondered why they hadn't got him up and moving. I was very concerned with him not being able to walk again, so I requested that a physical therapist come in and make sure his arms and legs would still move. Oh my gosh. His right side was showing similar signs of a stroke. The surgeon reassured me that this was just a normal reaction to the manipulation of the brain to remove the blood clot. There would be waxing and waning of what would function and then not function. I asked if I could follow the PT's moves and continue to work with Tim to keep everything moving. I was okay to do this. They said that more movement would definitely help him progress faster, but they didn't have the manpower to be in there as often as I would prefer. I worked with him daily and was able to have him move to inpatient therapy within 2 weeks. The therapist there couldn't believe how well he could move in such a short time. He worked very hard and was able to leave that hospital within 2 more weeks. He has continued PT ever since and is still going because his right arm and hand haven't completely returned to normal yet and may or may not ever get back to 100%. Because of Tim's physical limitations and the physical requirements of working at the DPW, Tim is no longer able to perform his duties at the DPW to full capacity, and the city hasn't offered him a position that would accommodate his limitations.
Your Honor,
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt, and I certainly sympathize. I think I can say we all sympathize with what Mrs. Lippert is relating to us. However, this is a personnel matter, and she's beginning to speak about his employment relationship with the city, which falls to the city manager and his HR director.
That's why I'm here for that.
Well, I understand that, but under our charter, this is something that's directed to the manager, not the city council.
We've tried. We have tried contacting the city manager. He has not responded.
All right, well, the manager's here, he's listening, I'm sure he'll be dealing with it when his HR director returns, and I'd suggest that, we can't stop you from talking.
Well, I would like to continue talking because I would like this to be opened
But
up.
I'm just telling you that you're about to go into an area that's under the...
Mr. Papadopoulos, please.
Under the city manager's purview, not the council's.
Okay. Well, because of the city's refusal to place Tim in any city position that will accommodate his disability, the city is forcing Tim to apply for a non-duty disability retirement. There is one huge problem with an early retirement. Tim and our family will not receive his health care benefits. The city is denying Tim health care until he turns 60 years old. That means more than 4 years from now with no health care. Let me repeat that. On a technicality, the city is denying a recently disabled employee and his family health care at a time in which he needs it the most. A couple years ago, the city council had an idea to save money on the backs of long-term employees by not allowing them health care at retirement until age 60 instead of the age of 55 for non-police and age 50 for police, which has been since the inception of retiree health care. Over the years since Tim started, many contracts for the DPW went with little to no increase in pay to make sure that the health care was still covered until retirement and following it. I don't know if council knows this, but out of the 100-plus employees the city has, this 60 age rule only affects 7 city employees, 3 administrators, and 4 DPW employees. Again, this age 60 cost savings thing only affects 7 city employees, and it will never affect any future employees as no future employees receive post-employment health care. Tim had no intention of retiring early. He loves his job and has always gone above and beyond at work. He even created a new chilling system for City Hall and saved the city thousands of dollars by doing the work himself with only a few other crew workers. A letter of understanding for Tim's health care was written up by the city attorney, the DPW director, and the HR director to allow Tim to have the insurance. We were told it was approved and Tim would just need to sign it. Then, to our understanding, the city manager talked to council at the last closed council session about this, but did not present the letter of understanding or explain who was in question. Something is not right here. How is it that in the last year, the ex-police chief and ex-city manager, both healthy individuals, were allowed to retire well before age 60 with health care, but the city is refusing to allow my husband to work and forcing him to retire with no health care? I only ask that next week council convenes into a closed session with the letter of understanding, and this time please include the HR director and reconsider your decision on age 55 instead of 60, or accommodate my husband's disability in a position within the city. Tim's condition and lack of support from his longtime employer has been extremely stressful, emotional, and heartbreaking to him and our family. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christine Kessler. I live at 3470 Johnson Street in Trenton, Michigan. Julie's my sister and Tim is my brother-in-law. This situation has caused an unbelievable amount of stress on our family. This decision has left her son without health care, her husband without health care, and possibly herself. This is causing a great deal of upheaval. And I'd like to remind you, or maybe you don't even know, that Tim took a shot of 480 volts while working for the city in last August, a year ago August. And that could have very well been the start of this whole thing, and nobody ever addressed it. He was never sent to the hospital by the city. Julie had to take him himself later that day. In addition, Tim was at a training course with the city of Canton, and the course trainer told him that the city of Canton was in the same situation with two of their DPW employees. They both had brain injuries, and the city retired them with full pension and health care because they felt that they were a liability to the city, and this was the right thing to do, as they were also long-term employees. Tim has given up a lot to work for this city. He could have gone other places and taken more money. He's very, very skilled. But he stayed here because he liked the city. He liked working for you guys. He liked improving the city. He saved you guys thousands and thousands of dollars fixing equipment rather than letting it be totally left go and not having to buy new things. And to be in this position where he's not valued because all of a sudden he can't do what you guys want him to do is really quite unfair. And I really do hope that you reconsider how he is being treated right now, because it is unfair. And as you say, you're Christians, you want to be in the way of God, well, this would do it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Oh, I didn't see Mr. Webb.
Got to be quicker.
Everybody wants to be last.
Good evening, everyone. Brian Webb, 20271 Maplewood. Just quickly, I'm just learning of this situation. I know Tim Liphart for many years, an outstanding gentleman, and I hope there's something the city can do to help for him. But actually what I'm here for is a few updates on some committees that I work for, just to make the public aware, since not everybody is on social media. The first is the Board of Review. Recently heard the appeals from residents. And like last year, I'd like to reiterate what a great job that our current assessing department does, even though that they are contracted out. I think they do a fair job. Maybe not every resident agrees with that, but that's why we have the Board of Appeals. And everybody that brought their appeals forward to us, I think, got a fair hearing. And there are sometimes things that we just can't control, and unfortunately, people may have to go to the tribunal, but I think in this year that all the decisions were fair, and I don't think we'll have anybody at the tribunal. So, number one, I just want to say great job. And number two is if you're preparing for your appeals next year, make sure that you're getting comparables to bring to the board which would be apples to apple almost, which would be a house built in a similar, within a couple of years, similar acreage, similar size, and sales price, so that we can gauge if you're being fairly assessed. The other committee is the Community Advisory Group for the McLeod Steel. So we had our last meeting in February and recently got the meeting minutes, and those are available at mcleodcag.com and or from the EPA website if you want to see them from yourself if you're not on Facebook, but I did post them in a couple of the Riverview Residents group if you want to see them for yourselves. But the key takeaways are two things, is that the EPA is now working and have a contractor to do the remedial investigation and the feasibility study, which is essentially where they look for all the contaminants on the site and determine if they have a pathway to the public, and then what measures will be taken to clean up those contaminants. And then secondly, that at the location, the Crown and MSC has been doing railroad rehabilitation work with the intention to reconnect the Jefferson crossing to reinstitute rail access. Just want to make sure the public's aware of that. And lastly, the Neighborhood Community Watch will be reconvening after taking the winter off the 2nd May. Forgive me, I don't have, well, I can get it on my phone real quick. That will be
Tuesday?
It's a Wednesday,
Wednesday?
the second Wednesday, the 10th,
Okay.
here at the community center, where we talk about recent crimes, crime prevention. Generally, our chief or one of the liaisons there to hear the residents' concerns. And we'll also be making plans to attend Summerfest, where we do our fundraising activities for the year, which helps pay for the National Night Out, which is the first Tuesday in August, where all the residents are invited out for fun and activities and food. And I'd like to thank Councilman Norton for volunteering to pass out the candy at the Easter stroll. I already had volunteered to do the same event for my nonprofit, Be Well My Friends. And actually since then, I've had a couple of volunteers from that organization step up. So Chuck, I will be working with you on that day as well, so you're not single-handedly passing out all the candy. So those are my updates. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Norton.
I didn't hear what time on the 10th.
Thanks for clarifying, Chuck. That's 6 p.m. and they'll be in the Senior Activity Centers just down the way.
Hello, everyone.
Anybody else? Oh,
Oh, sorry. See, I am fast. Dino Papadopoulos. I just have some, and I'm bringing these respectfully, just opinions on the laws, the charter, and how it mixes with state law when we're talking about the petition. But the first thing was, I read through a meeting, and I don't know that people caught the purpose of it, but I'll continue portions of those meetings. There's a couple more where there's still sort of this prosecution going on by the former mayor for 3 signatures. And in that case, it was 3 or 4 signatures that were actual people. They were Riverview residents, they were registered, and they voted that year. He was being prosecuted. He actually was charged in the 27th District Court. I don't know how many people even know any of this stuff. And find me a court that's ever done that. I challenge anyone that's listening to this. But I brought that, and I'm going to bring the other 2 meetings doing the same thing to show you what happened in that case. Now, yes, that was 2011, but what do we have here? We had word that there was 1 signature and an address missing. Well, that's not the case. The register told you there were more than 100 that weren't certified, and when you see that more than 100 aren't certified, how does that happen? It's not lines that go throughout sheets, random people. How did 100 people mess up that bad? What really happens is you have entire sheets that get wiped out. And I haven't looked at these sheets, but I've done this. I know this. What you do is you exit all out. When you exit all out, you got a circulator problem. And when you look at the law and what circulators can do to violate the law, that's a huge problem. And that's what Mayor Durant was doing in these meetings. He was saying, you weren't there while they signed. Can you believe it? I mean, he was charged in criminal court because he wasn't in the room while someone was signing something. Here we have More than 100 that weren't certified. And I heard Councilman Norton talk about maybe they weren't registered. Well, that's a crime too if you sign it and you're not registered, but I have a hard time believing 100 people signed a petition and they're all just not registered to vote. They just signed petitions. So that's why I brought that up. It was the end of the world in 2011. It wasn't like it is now where the mayor is saying, call. But this isn't about what they said to you at the door. It has nothing to do with that. You can see on its face, an entire sheet was wiped out. Those are 25 signature pages usually, right? About 100, and the story said a little more than 100. That's why it said a little more than 100, because these sheets are gone. But nobody wants to talk about them or investigate that. And I'm just letting you know the former mayor sure did for 3 straight meetings, and he was charged in criminal court after the election. So I just wanted to, it went over everybody's head, and that's fine, that's fine. And now I'm going to talk about the charter. I don't, and I say this respectfully to the city attorney, he knows that. I don't believe the charter applies at all, and I don't think that matters much, but I do have to bring up the 3 options that were mentioned. Well, the first option is for what's called an initiatory petition. That's whether you take in whatever's been asked. This isn't an initiatory petition in nature, it's a referendary petition. It's trying to repeal something. Now that is really screwed up by the actual petitions that are filed out there because they call them a petition to initiate legislation that repeals a law. So that got it all screwed up. But the city charter doesn't apply, most importantly, for this one reason. To get something under either a referendary petition or initiatory petition, both are defined and they're separate things. In Riverview, you don't just get 200 and some votes. You have to get a percentage from the entire registered electorate. That means you have to get out of how many? 8,000 plus people a certain percentage, and I think that is 10%. So that's why, in my mind, the law would not look at that as the same law that they're coinciding. They're not. So the option of taking in the ordinance or repealing on the spot, those aren't there. That's a different, the charter addresses it differently because those are petitions that are referendary or initiatory. This petition is done under state law. State law says it goes to the voters. There's no other option given under state law. And although that might not conflict because, hey, our city law allows other options, it does conflict because the city charter is dealing with someone who went out and got a lot of votes, and they got them within 60 days. It's a totally different world when you do this with the city. So that's why I think the city charter wouldn't apply. So look at the 100 signatures, if anyone would care, or maybe 10 years ago, that was just stupidity, what was going on. 3 days of hearings, and here we have nothing. We just have people saying, well, my people, they know how to read petitions and my people don't. It's not that simple. You guys are looking at Riverview precedent in the face and saying 100 signatures, that's cool. Mayor Durant, for 3 signatures, man, prosecute him till no end. So just kind of waking everybody up. And the reason I butt in...
Mr. Papadopoulos, you need to wrap it up.
And the reason I butt in is,
Quickly.
as a lawyer, when I hear something that is unjust, I don't care if it's in court, council, whatever it is, everyone that knows me knows I'm only using my mouth. So it's not a disruption like someone that comes in here and says someone's going to end up in a geriatric home or the crazy
Thank you, Mr.
things.
Papadopoulos, you're way over. Thank you. Mr. Papadopoulos, please. Anybody else?
Bill Toll, 17861 Devonshire. Just a couple questions, Mayor. I'll address you, and one to Chuck. To you, Mayor, I'll wait till the close of the meeting for your response. Softball questions. Can you provide the residents with an update on the progress of that gas facility at the landfill that basically you, Dean, and Jim Trowley negotiated? I mean, I know you guys spent over 1.5 years working with various companies before you were to finalize an agreement. But I'd like to know where they stand at on schedule. Just bring the residents up to date on it, because it's probably the largest single new business, if you want to call it, that's going to be coming into this community in quite a while. Next question is for you, Chuck. And I don't know if it's accurate, but I got a call. Someone indicated they're going to be going out for a special assessment for the police and fire, or for the police, and that they're probably going to place it on a November ballot rather than the August ballot. I'd like to know if that's an accurate statement, and if it is, just exactly how much of an assessment will you be looking for? Thank you.
Anybody else?
Ken Kyleman, 20243 Coachwood, Mayor and Council. I'm speaking tonight as a follow-up to an email I sent you last Wednesday regarding the status of the restricted funds associated with land preserve in our city. As I mentioned in my previous communication, there's been a lot of discussion and confusion about the accounts associated with these funds, and I believe it's time that we address these concerns in a meaningful way. As a concerned citizen, I have done my best to understand the accounts associated with these funds by reviewing budgets and annual audits and asking questions of the mayor and council and meeting with the previous city manager and finance director. However, I'm still not much closer to understanding them than I was at the beginning. And I understand that there are persons on this panel who feel the same as I do in this regard. In my previous email, I proposed a solution that I believe would begin to shed some light on the activity in these three accounts. The accounts in question are perpetual care, financial assurance, and compliance. I suggested that you request supporting information from the city manager as a part of the budget process as outlined in Section 8.2G of our charter. I gave some suggestions as to what the council might request to engineer a suitable, repeatable document, and I am confident that our city manager and his team will be able to create something responsive. I understood that the proposed budget was due to be presented tonight as required by the city charter, but I don't see it on the agenda. That being said, my request may not be very timely. However, I still believe that this information could be made available in time for consideration prior to any study sessions or public hearings on the budget. Additionally, I'd like to reintroduce some questions from my previous communications, which I believe are important for the council to address. One, do we have an estimate of when the city will be producing quarterly investment reporting in compliance with Public Act 213 of 2007? Two, do we have an estimate of when the city will begin producing the quarterly reporting required by Section 8.5D of the city charter? Third, why does the fiscal 2022-2023 budget state that the interest income on its environmental escrow accounts will be used as a part of the Land Preserve's operating transfers to the General Fund and Local Streets Fund, when Note 5 of the annual audit states that these earnings are restricted? Fourth, how has the compliance account been funded in the past, and how is it currently being funded? And finally, is the 1990 agreement with the State of Michigan Department of Natural Resources still in effect? And if so, how much was deposited into the Perpetual Care Fund for fiscal 2021-22 because of the solid waste provisions of this agreement? And how much is projected to be deposited for fiscal 2022-23? I urge the council to take my suggestions and these questions seriously and provide clear and concise answers. I believe that respectful communication and transparency are key to building trust between citizens and their government. And it's important that we work together to ensure that the funds associated with the land preserve are being managed appropriately and in accordance with the law, and that our city charter is being honored in every respect. And please don't interpret any of my comments as a criticism of our current city manager, who has inherited many issues from the prior administration that I am confident he is working diligently to clean up. And let me also add that I appreciate the way the budget amendments were formatted in today's agenda. They're clearly explained and easy to understand. Thank you for your attention to these matters. I look forward to hearing your response later in the meeting or in the near future.
Thank you. Anybody else? I don't think you can come back up, Brian.
Can I just give a correction on the URL for the website for McLeod?
Go ahead.
I apologize, I misspoke. It's mclouthsteelcag.org. mclouthsteelcag.org.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Pete Podolsky, 18221 Fox Glen. I just want to acknowledge and thank and give my regards and respect to the Mark Holton family, residents of Riverview who have held the annual Strides for Adam 5K and Reflection Walk for the last 4 years in memory of one of our own and their son, Adam Holton, to shed light on the pandemic of the struggle of depression. It was the 4th annual race last week, and the Holtons, along with the sponsors and local businesses, really do a phenomenal job putting this together and for a great cause. I'd be remiss not to thank Dave and Eve Howell, who, by their efforts and work, really elevate this city. Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for being there, sir. You've been there every year I participated, and you do it not because there's a photo op or a chance to promote yourself. You care. We're all busy, and I'm sure we have things to do on a Sunday morning, but we were there in memory of Adam. This race really puts Riverview in a positive light in lieu of some of the divisive commentary from some of the council we've heard recently. It was refreshing to see and hear people appreciating our city, people from all over the area and community, even as far as Marshall, Michigan, Clarkston, East Lansing, I believe Olmsted Falls, Ohio. Congresswoman Dingle was present. I mean, that's how important this annual race was and is. This is the Riverview, the real Riverview I know, as a community coming together for one of its own.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, well,
Hi, my name's Lisa Ponovas, and I live at 17138 Quarry Street. And I'm here because I guess their City of Riverview sent out a notice that was, I guess they're holding an appeal for a hearing, and they're trying to, I guess, change a zone of the building I live in. But the thing is, they sent it to all the residents but the people who live in the building. So the residents that live in my building and the building next to us, who it would affect, it's a parking thing they're doing, they didn't send it to us. They sent it to the people out on the streets. So we would not even know there's this hearing going on about our building and changing parking, which they're trying to make it, I guess, the downstairs a residential part. They don't have enough parking, so they're going to want us to park 2 doors down at a party store, which means walking through the alley at night or taking a 4-minute walk home, which is really not convenient for anyone. So I'm here because, I mean, one thing is all 6 tenants in the 6 apartments weren't notified, so we would have not had any say. It just so happens I ran into a neighbor across the street who was like, I received something in the mail about your building. She's like, we're voting on, whether they're going to make it a residential one or not. I did contact the landlord and ask him what his plans were to do. He told me he was going to try to squeeze 3 cars in the back for parking, which again makes no sense because there's an apartment in the front on Quarry Street, and they have no way to get to the back besides walking through the neighbor's yard. My door is in the back. I have no way of leaving my apartment unless I walk through their yard. So to give us parking that's down at a party store or park someone who lives in the front apartment in the back makes no sense, which all the residents, I did notify them, and they will be saying something because parking's really tight around there. I'm just kind of concerned that none of us got the notice. That just seems a little odd to me. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
David Prey, 13740 Huntington, Riverview. I wasn't going to speak tonight. I was just coming to listen. Last meeting, I turned around to face Elmer while I was talking to him. The mayor, you told me to make sure that I addressed the comments towards you. I wanted to clarify. Normally, when I'm talking to someone, I look them in the eye, and that's why I was turning. I want to clarify that, but the only reason I wanted to come up tonight is, and I am going to turn, so I do apologize. Julie, I know nothing of your situation. For those of you that know me, my son went through something very, very similar when he was 11. They gave him a 2% chance of surviving. I pulled up a picture on my phone with me and him at the Grand Canyon last year. It was a year and a half just to get him walking again, so I know exactly what you're going through. My prayers are with you guys. The one comment I wanted to make, and Mr. Podolsky just made a comment. Towards the end of what you just said, you said something along the lines of Riverview, takes care of its own. When I came to this city 16, 17 years ago, once it became public, because I was so heavily into the RBA and the RJFA and everything, once my son's condition got out, the outpouring of love from this city did amazing things for my kid. Riverview does take care of its own. I know nothing of the situation, but I will say this. I would hope that we can look into this, because as residents, we should be taking care of our own. So my prayers are with you guys. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? With that, we'll move on. Is there any item council wants we have no organizational business. Any item council wants removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none. 9.1, approve the annual city donation to the Guidance Center in the amount of $4,000. 9.2, approve the city participation in the national opioid settlement with Teva, Allergan, CVS, and Walmart. 9.3, authorize solicitation of bid for emergency and non-emergency electrical maintenance and repair services at city buildings and facilities. Budget amendments 9.4A, B, C, and D. What's council's pleasure?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Norton, supported by Councilman Naganaga. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Norton?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Mayor Swift?
Yes.
Councilmember Workman?
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga?
Yes.
Tonight, we have no resolutions. There's nothing under administration and ordinances. Now's the time for other business. This is where we normally respond to the guest and visitor comments, but before we do that, we need to finish some unfinished city business as far as it relates to our committees. And just so we're all on the same page, I will read the committees, the sheets as I have them, as the notes we took at the meeting. We've had discussions as this at a council meeting. I couldn't find my list until actually an hour ago when I found it. So we need to move forward. We need to get our committees filled so we can get moving on getting a lot of this work done. So if the council doesn't mind, I'll just go down the list as I have them, and if you agree, just kind of nod your head. If you don't, let me know. For the Ad Hoc Civil Engineering Committee would be myself, Councilman Robbins, and Councilwoman Ganaga. Is that what you all have? Okay. Ad Hoc Environmental Engineering Committee would be myself, Councilman Robbins, and Councilman Workman. Is that what you guys have? Okay. Ad Hoc Land Preserve Committee would be myself, Councilman Workman, Councilman Norton, and Councilman Robbins is the alternate. Ad Hoc Public Safety is Councilman Norton, Councilwoman Ganaga, and Councilwoman O'Neill, with Councilman Robbins as the alternate. Ad Hoc Riverview Highlands, myself, Councilwoman Ganaga, and Councilwoman O'Neill, correct? Ad Hoc Vision Committee would be Councilman Norton, Councilman Robbins, and Councilwoman Ganaga, is that correct? All right, and I think we have Beautification Commission's Councilwoman O'Neill. I think correct me if I'm wrong, Randy, did we not make a move on the CDGB Advisory Committee? So we're kind of out of that loop, the way the county does things now.
You're correct about that. It's totally different. Now we use Mr. Kibbe as our consultant.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. The only other change I have, well, there's, at least on the list, Economic Development Corporation, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, we'd be adding our new city manager, Jeff Doback. We have, committee to improve the Veterans Memorial would be myself and Councilman Norton, is this correct? Okay, with that, I would look for a motion to adopt the committees as discussed.
So moved.
Motion by Councilwoman Ganaga, supported by?
Support.
Councilman Norton. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Mayor Swift?
Yes.
Councilmember Workman?
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga?
Yes.
Councilmember Norton?
Yes.
All right, any other things that council wants to bring up at this time?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Norton.
3-year chair to city manager. With Mr. Toll, I guess we're on a first-name basis, I'll call him Bill. With Bill's question about the assessment, is there anything that has changed within the last council meeting?
Oh, as far as the, I wouldn't call it a special assessment, I'd call it a millage.
I'm reading the wrong part of my note. The millage, yes.
Yeah. I don't think anything's changed since last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
But that's going to be something we're going to look at, pretty darn soon, I would think, about the possibility of putting a special millage, public safety millage on the November ballot. So the amount has to be determined, and I think we'll go through that either as we go through the budget process or it'll be a result of the budget process. But I'll answer what best I can on what Mr. Toll asked about the gas plant. Yeah, go right ahead.
Your Honor, we met with DTE Gas and Riverview Energy Systems last week. The $55 million gas plant is under construction right now with the hope for it to be done late summer and commissioned making gas by the fall.
Correct, but I will just add to that this has really been this is one of our very long-term projects. This has been years in the making. You talk about, I think, basically put on or sponsored by the landfill committee. Several deals got struck down over the years. They come real close, and then they just didn't pan out. But the last few certainly have, with the efforts of the landfill committee itself and obviously staff. I don't know how much we can talk about as far as amounts go, but I know the guaranteed minimum is $400,000 a year. That's what DT likes us to talk about. But it's all tied to the values of RINs. And we know those are energy credits. I don't pretend to know how they work. I just know they mean money to us. And when the value of those RINs goes up, then our share of the royalties will go up. But that's all as a result of years of work behind the scenes. And with that, I think it's congratulations to council and staff for getting that done. And I'm just kind of looking through the rest of my notes of what I can respond to. I would like to thank Brian Webb. He is the representative on behalf of our Economic Development Committee, Brownfield Authority, our representative to the Community Advisory Group. He did post some stuff online, the results of the last meeting, so he's done a great job there. I don't know if I can respond to some of the stuff from Mr. Papadopoulos, because I'll let Randy respond if there's city charter issues and what does or not. Do you want to take a comment, Randy, on how the city charter applies as far as the latest petition is concerned?
Well, obviously, Mayor, we respectfully disagree with Mr. Papadopoulos' legal analysis, but at the end of the day, it's academic. The council made a motion. It's going to move forward to the ballot at the next election, and it really doesn't matter whether we're right or he's right in terms of the integration of the two bodies of law. So I don't think it requires much more than that.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else council wants to bring up at this time?
Your Honor,
Councilwoman O'Neill.
I just have one question. How much of the gas plant was to to be dedicated to our OPEB?
I don't remember there was a portion of it was supposed to be donated to OPEB. Jeff, do you have a number on that?
I don't have a total, but what I know the agreement said was net revenue. So that would be revenue minus expense.
Anything else council wants to bring up? With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn from Councilman Workman.
So move, Your Honor.
Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Councilman Norton. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Swift,
Yes.
Councilmember Workman,
Yes.
Councilmember Ganaga,
Yes.
Councilmember Norton,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Let the record show the meeting is adjourned at 7:45.